Today's chat is brought to you by the support of our Twitch subscribers. Through the patronage that you provide the Focus Fire chat team through the Twitch platform, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast, as well as the game streams, website, and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a subscriber of the FFC and gaining access to some of the exclusive features in the Discord server, please be sure to visit our Twitch account and click on the subscribe button. If you're an Amazon Prime member, remember that you do have a free subscription to Twitch every month that can be used for this. And for those of you who are already subscribers, thank you again for your generosity.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat. Explore together.
Welcome back for episode 125 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on March 16th, 2018, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Big shout out to our live chat here. Thank you so much for joining us for another evening back in the tower. This is your host, Blue Crew 86. Alongside me, we have the master of our social media, the one and only Green-Eyed Music Lover. Green, I hope you're doing well, or I'm pretty sure you're looking forward to tonight's chat, but can I get a confirmation on that?
I have been hitting my head up against a wall with this subject just because it's the subject.
I mean, there's gravitational waves.
Yeah, the science part has been awesome. I may have tweeted out like my immense appreciation to the Destiny writers for writing, or at least suggesting, a lot of possible scientific tie-ins to all of Destiny, but like in particular this group, because I went down a rabbit hole and I'm going to butt heads with Beard tonight, and it's going to be fine, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be awesome, and we're going to get
that
going.
Depends on your definition of fine.
I was about to say, does that depend on your definition of head? Because we can still butt something.
God. Is phrasing still a thing? Is phrasing still a thing?
Yeah, I think phrasing is still a thing.
I was going to say, Green actually, she didn't really, indirectly encouraged me to go find a TED Talk about gravitational waves and supermassive black holes. So I will tip my hat to that. On that, you did succeed there.
These are good things to be.
The universe is still expanding, and I now know more about. I forgot what it's called, but it's confirmed, and I learned about the Goldilocks zone and all of the star, and it's just I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I'll probably forget it before tonight's podcast, which I pretty much did. But I remember gravitational waves because that was a really fascinating way of like their exploration. It's like never even thought about using that. But anyways, we also have with us the grizzly bearded cultivator of Spinfoil himself, Beard Grizzly. Beard, how are you doing tonight?
Sober.
That's given this week. I'm so sorry.
Yep.
If your week has been anything like mine,
or any of us, like it seems like everybody's having a rough time this week.
I honestly do feel like nobody I know has had exactly an exceptional week. So to anybody else that's out there that's had a great week, I'm going to rain on your parade a little bit and just say stop. No, that's not true. No. You're luckier than like most of the people that I know at that point. Which doesn't really say too much. It's just a matter that, hey, I'm glad you're having a good week because at least somebody is.
Someone needs to.
Yes,
please let us know. Please let us know if you're having a good week, because I know
fill those comment sections with nothing but good stuff. Please.
Yay! That would be amazing. Like, oh my god, guys! So
yeah, seriously,
that would make my next week start
so much more bearable. Oh man, ours is just my week's just been crazy busy. Is the thing. I mean, most of the team that's been in the Discord has probably noticed that I've not been in Discord, and that's because pretty much every time I'm up. Thankfully, my little one is down with his grandparents in the South on their ranch. So this week has been literally one of the busiest weeks, and we don't have to worry about having a 4-year-old. So it's been actually kind of nice not having to deal with that on top of everything else. So But yes, oh man. Well, last week we did ask what everyone thought the horse meant in the Third Spire, and I'm pretty sure Green's got some really good responses in, so I'm going to hand it over to her for those.
So I sent it out to the Twitterverse, the Discordverse. I did kind of maybe slipped it into Ishtar Collective's Discord as well, just to kind of see what those guys had to say. And we had a few responses that I thought were actually kind of nice and thoughtful. First one was from Chris Twin, at Chris Twin on Twitter, and he said, the horse equals freedom without restraint because it's just out of the safe area. I believe that means the freedom amongst the stars is just out of reach. There will always be something stopping you. Or the 9 have found I'm thinking that's a horse instead of a chicken. Looking at you, Cade. Yeah, he's using emojis, so it's a little hard. Also, by the way, just a side note, I don't remember who said this, but I swear to God, somebody tweeted at me that the reason there's a giant celestial horse is because the Destiny Bungie writers hate Justin, and they heard how much he hates horses. That may have been Vuru and Discord, actually.
No, Vuru was talking about the 9 are the horse people.
That's what it was. Yeah. It's like, oh my God. You guys. Snapshot said it's a possible Trojan horse or maybe Odin's horse. And then a last minute entry from Blaze. He thought either it's a signpost, Dark Horse Nebula, which we're going to get into probably a little bit later because that was mentioned in a video we're going to talk about, or something to do with the constellation Equilus, which actually I was looking up earlier, or a Greek mythology where the 9 muses loved Pegasus so much Zeus placed him in the sky as a constellation when he died. So these are all things I want to touch on later when we get a little bit more into that discussion, because that is exactly where my mind went. So I'm glad I'm not the only one on that one. But yeah, those were some really good responses for that.
Yeah, and the other thing for the horse too is also the cultural, like historical significance as a symbol that the horse represents. You know, I think the first one that you said had kind of was going along the lines of the freedom without restraint, which is a very popular translation of the horse. Very general symbol has always been like freedom and power. But the other thing that a lot of times you see is with like white horses, or like the color of the horses, and also the way that the horse is portrayed. So like dream analysis and stuff like that. The if the horse is like free, or if the horse is pinned, or if the horse is a black horse or a white horse, you know, or any variation of those, that can mean different things depending on who you're talking to for the analysis. And so like for instance, Native Americans, they view the horse as a symbol of power and war, and that's actually because of the historical significance that the horse played within their lives, their daily lives. To own a horse was seen as a status symbol. And then actually just historically, one of the things about horses in general is that it's actually argued that as animals, the fact is that horses are one of, if not the most influential animals in the spread of human civilization. They are significantly important in getting human civilization to disperse. And without that particular animal, it's argued that we would have, I mean, not that we wouldn't have spread out as we have, but it would have been significantly slower. You can see this in, for instance, for Rome, this kind of is a throwback, but Rome designed the road to be designed around a chariot, which is a horse-drawn carriage. And that then today, you even see that today in the development of cars. So the size of our cars today are all ascribed back to the size of those original roads, because when you're in Europe, there was just those roads. Those roads were designed and they weren't really, there was not a lot of space to tear those roads up and rebuild. So they just kept building on top of them. And then that was all designed to have enough room for two chariots to go past each other. Well, when they redesigned the roads, they had to build the cars to fit those roads. And, you know, it's like the chain is just really kind of cool to follow with that stuff. And speaking of Rome, Romans viewed the horses as, as a war figure. That's because, again, chariots, they connected the horse to Mars, who was Ares. And then there's, you know, I know if I remember correctly, the horse in the Third Spire, there's only one. But it is worth noting that in a lot of folklore, if you see horses as gathering together and clumping together, that's usually a sign of a storm coming, which actually is scientifically pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Because
well as cows.
Cows, sheep, any domesticated, well, not even domesticated, any like herd prey animals will do that. And that's simply because in the case of a storm, if you think about it, the more they can get together, the more protection that the whole group gets. Right. Cows even have, like, you know, I know how everyone makes fun of cows for being really stupid, but cows actually have this really ingenious system for really bad storms in which they actually rotate. If you ever see a big herd of cattle, I know this is weird, but watch them if it's a big storm, because they will actually rotate. So the cattle that are on the outside of the group will slowly make their way into the inside of the group, and the cattle on the inside of the group will slowly rotate out. And basically what that does, especially in snowstorms, what that does is it allows them to all maintain that group warmth, and also none of their herd freezes. So it's really kind of an ingenious little thing. And then just finally, the symbolic of the spirit of the horse is, again, that freedom. That's usually seen in that a horse is perceived as an animal that serves but cannot be fully tamed. You hear that a lot with horses that are broken and all that, but horses don't, like, they're always going to be their own animal. You know, you can
their own personality,
right? And I mean, having grown up with horses, I can attest that is a very accurate statement. You can have the best behaved horse in the world, and every animal has a trigger. And the thing with a horse is that they're just so big. And so a horse, you can tame it, you can train it, you can even break it if you really, you know, want to go down that path, but you'll never fully own it. And that's where that idea of freedom without restraint kind of comes from.
You could be a miniature horse person. It could be. See, Blue had to deal with larger horses, which we had larger horses.
No,
too,
we had miniature horses, but like my frustration for miniature horses comes solely from my profession as a farrier. Yeah, because miniature horses, I'm sorry, miniature horses are the biggest
butt heads.
Yeah, let's go with that word. Like, because
I know which word you're going to use.
Gosh, yeah.
I love my minis. I'm a small person, guys. Well, I'm a short person, guys. I love my minis. I don't have them anymore, but yeah.
I mean, like,
Blue and I always get in this topic.
we had a mini who was like a large dog. Like, he was a great horse, but even he, like I'm not a super big person. I'm not like super tall or anything, but like when you're shoeing a horse, it's already kind of awkward. And then if you have a horse that's half the size of a normal horse, it's like even worse. And then on top of that, if you have the horse that's half the size of a normal horse and has the attitude of an animal that's like 3 times the size, or it thinks it's 3 times the size, I'm just going to say,
it's like a Chihuahua horse.
Oh,
it's the Chihuahua syndrome.
It's like if you ever get kicked by a mini, it's not that it like hurts because of the amount of force. It hurts because they're like getting hit with small knives. Their feet are so tiny, and they're so sharp, and they're so fast. They're evil. Like, no, I kind of agree with Justin on that one. Like there is a little bit of maliciousness in miniature horses.
Well, yeah, you have to defend yourself as a short being.
As chat, yes. The miniature horses by far have a Napoleon complex. Like
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh, they have such a Napoleon complex. But oh man, okay, let's see. So that all being said, what are we thinking? Oh, you're wanting to cause a literal war.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I want to do something that's just going to get people just kind of worked up a little bit.
All right, so I don't want to announce this one, but I will. So the next week's poll is going to be who is the best faction leader, or let me rephrase: who is the best faction representative? Because to be fair, we don't know if they're the leaders, but who is the best faction rep? So that being the reps that are in the tower.
I think you wanted to word that as who is the best faction rep, and why is it actually two? I gotta go along with these things. Who is the best warlock, and why is it Olin Tan? I gotta keep up with all of this. All right.
I'm just curious to see what kind of shenanigans it will cause on Twitter, because
oh my gosh,
I know Hiko's going to jump on board.
Oh yeah.
If Hideo wins, there will be riots in the streets.
Hey, this
I am just putting it out there now.
To finally win something in the faction wars.
Oh, what's that? You want me to throw you off the tower? You're pretty close to it.
I'm going to get such hate mail for that one. It's a fine. It's a fine.
I cannot legitimately help it that everybody that plays Future War Cult has a life.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you heard me.
Really?
You heard me.
Mr. Monster Hunter? Mr. Monster Hunter? I mean...
No. No, you don't get to pull that one. No, you don't.
Hey, I can't help that we're loyal.
I love that personal theory of yours.
Yes.
Oh man! All right.
No weight whatsoever.
Be sure to.
Chat's all angry already.
It is.
Oh.
It is all in love. Guys.
Oh man!
It is all in love.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely keep an eye out on Twitter for that one, and be sure to sound off and let us know your thoughts,
as well as retweet it.
As well as retweet it.
Or hide and stay under a rock because it's probably
get under a rock. Now I have a picture of you guys have seen WALL-E when the ship's landing and Wally's like digging to get under the ground. That's the mental image I just saw.
Sad.
They have pizza plants. How are you sad?
Because of everybody who's got their personal floating device.
Well, I want my personal floating device too, so.
No.
Oh man. Well, going forward, I know we're looking forward to diving into this discussion. So let's run through our standard intro notes real quick, and then we'll get right into it. Our topic for this week's chat is going to be a look at the 9. Before we jump into that, however, I do have a few housekeeping notes to run through. In our last chat, we discussed warlocks. If you ever missed an episode and would like to catch up, please be sure to check out the new FocusFireChat.com for archives, articles, and links to the other aspects of FocusFire Chat. If you don't mind, please rate and, if you can, review the show on iTunes, Podbeans, or whichever podcasting app you use to enjoy podcasts. Reviews in particular are extremely helpful as they help us show up on charts, and that helps others find the FFC community. To those of you who have already taken the time to leave us a review, thank you again. As many of you already know, FocusFire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Friday at around 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a recap for the previous week's chat for those who were unable to participate. Please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts in the Guardian Radio Network, links of which can be found in our show notes or on our website. Podcasts that are focused on Destiny include Guardian Radio, the first and longest running Destiny podcast on the net, Guardian One, which is a Destiny group dedicated to Guardians helping Guardians and discussing current Destiny news and happenings, Ghost and Echoes, which is a collection of the Destiny audio grimoire from Destiny 1, and the network's newest edition, This Guardian Life, which is a podcast from the casual Guardian's perspective that highlights all Guardians, large and small. We do also have a non-Destiny focused podcast, The Enthusiast Life, which is a podcast that discusses a wide range of fun topics from within the entertainment world. Our next chat is going to be a discussion on the faction wars, so be sure to weigh in on the poll this weekend to let us know which topic you would like to discuss after that. Links to that poll can be found on either Twitter @FocusFireChat or within our Discord server. I asked Green to put together a high-level summary of tonight's topic, and this is what she had to say.
You are not like the others. You hunger for knowledge, where others are content in what they think is truth. Perhaps a shadow of truth will trickle into your mind's eye between the waking and mort. You wield cosmic power, and you carry the weight of the past around as a shell of armor. You don't understand. You know nothing. No one does. You chase it, not as children chase the sun, but as a hunter stalks prey. Good. You think you found this place. It wants to be found. There are many like me, and so this place serves myriad purpose. Welcome, Guardian, to the place where everything dies and begins anew.
Before we jump into the information and thoughts that the community had about the 9, though, let's look at this week's Lost Lore. All right, so this week I think it's pretty appropriate to talk about one of our favorite vendors and his many lines, Xur. You guys think that's a good idea?
I mean,
Favorite Xur line?
If it's anything like Green having split personalities over here, Xur's got like 17 or more. So yeah, I think that fits perfectly.
Hey, I can't do that voice live. I have to do that with some very special preparation.
You know, I'm just going to start calling you Apple because you got a post-process like an iPhone.
Oh. So yeah, do you guys want to just do your favorite line from Xur?
I don't know. What do you think?
I asked you first, so I get out of this conversation.
Weird.
God, I mean, if we're gonna go favorite voice lines, then give me a second because I actually have to go grab the book that I wrote down most of them in.
I did put a link in the show notes.
I know you did.
He's got to
have ones that I like legitimately wrote down that I like.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of them.
Nice.
I actually needed to for a number of reasons. One was the recent bits that I have personally done on the 9, which, spoilers, I'm probably going to be talking about that stuff all over again.
I'm okay with that.
It's going to make everybody else mad, which I understand. Nobody actually really liked that any of the theories I presented on that end, which, whatever. But it did actually lead back
no one's salty about this at all.
The only person that's salty about it is me because I think I did a lot of work behind it. But that's fine.
That video came out 5 months ago?
The 9 stuff. I did that.
I thought you did that a while ago.
I did that November, I think. It was a 4-parter because I had 4 parts to that whole thing, and then I did a conglomerate and I just kind of shoved it all together, and it worked out to be 45 minutes total that I had. So it was a lot. Yeah, let me get my book. You guys talk.
What are your favorite voice lines, Blue?
Most of them that I am really familiar with, honestly, are from Destiny 1. So I'm looking just real quick over, Destinypedia has, I believe most of them, if not all of them.
They have a good chunk.
Yeah, I know. Like, getting idle dialogue from vendors, just FYI for those who don't know, is a very time-consuming hobby. I'm gonna use that word, and I deeply appreciate everyone out there who does this because, oh my gosh, like it takes a long time to not only collect them but also to transcribe them. So it's really nice, to be honest, for those.
Repeat some of the same things over.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean that, and like there's some throwaway lines that are just like very, very, very rare, and it's just I cannot fully voice my appreciation for those of you who are willing to just stand there and listen.
That's how we got one of the most intriguing tie-ins for something we're going to talk about later from Bife's video.
Though also the Tower PA, which Pens is mentioning in chat right now, had some of those were actually some of my favorites. those lines.
Things regarding Cade
yelling at you for stealing his sparrow, and then like on comms he finds it where he parked it.
Wait, never mind.
I found it. Disregard. Let's see. Like, just looking real quick, Destiny 2 has some interesting ones that are standing out to me. Like the singular eye. So he says the Nine's eye is still watching.
One of my favorites is talking about and I can't remember it off the top of my head. And I know you posted the link, and I'm not opening it.
It's okay.
The bit about you've done so much, but can you fight a planet? And I'm just like,
It's a newer one, isn't it? That's
it's from Destiny 2. You have fought everything else that entered this realm. Will you fight a planet? It's like a comet.
Really. Right. Maybe they should have watched my video months ago about what they could have done with Comet. Might have been a better story. What? Hang on, I didn't say nothing.
And then like he's mentioning again the dust. Again that was kind of a line from Destiny 1, where he said we came up from the dust and burrowed into flesh for warmth and became something new. And then in Destiny 2, he says the dust has commingled. The nine is forever changed. The way that he's phrasing things is really difficult with Xur, because Xur has a really odd. It's not quite Yoda, but it's like halfway there. So I don't know if it's just him being Xur, or if it's like, because when you say something is forever changed, it's not like it just, you don't say the nine is forever changed. You would say the nine are forever changed, right? If you're talking about individuals. But if you say is, that kind of seems, to me at least, to call out like, oh no, that's not a person or people, that's a thing.
Well, this also comes back to
or a singular thing.
Lines.
Like, sorry.
That's okay. There's another couple lines that actually fall back to this though a little bit. With in Destiny 1, he says, "An end will come, we will be there." But then, almost exactly after I heard that line, he says, "An end is here." So I'm like, "Oh, well, I guess Destiny 1's over already." It's this like weird juxtapositioning of ideas, which kind of suggests that like, is Xur's body fully within our time? Is there something else that's going on? He's a wacky doodad of a bunch of cells. What's that?
I said that reminds me of some of the other ones from D1, because D1 lines were really wacky.
Yeah.
You must stop eating salted popcorn.
Yeah. Well, that kind of wacky. I was thinking more of like
Sorry.
I feel no, you're good. I feel a great many consciousnesses and hanging on mine, and all of them are so small and lonely.
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah,
why can't you feel people's consciousness?
Well, and then like his perception of the awoken. So, which and I know Beard, you're gonna love this one, is in direct conflict to what the stranger said about the awoken, right?
Right.
Because the stranger doesn't like the awoken, or she looks kind of down on the awoken because they refuse to choose. And then Zer's line is, the awoken did not have a choice, we did.
Right.
So it's like, okay, whoa, which side of the bar are we on here, guys? Did they not have a choice, or did they have a choice and they haven't chosen? Like, I find that one that was a Destiny 1 line as well.
Yes. Well, and referring back to some of the other cells as well, some of the cells of this body began on this world. How strange to return. And
that one freaks me out.
Well, and it brought up a very interesting theory that I remember hearing about, where it's questioned, one, how many different planets or systems does Zer come from? How much of an amalgamation is he? Secondarily, it also makes me wonder, and I was actually just going to read this one too, bodies come and go, but the cells remember.
That's my
and if
second
they forget,
favorite.
The 9 remember it for us.
Yeah.
That's another one that kind of suggests that Zer basically is here, and then after he is done seemingly playing his part from Friday through Monday, he dissolves, and then he pops back again at another point. It's a very cute little theory to at least suggest that his cells could be made up of even our friend from last week that decided to go ahead and get blown away, but you still got something hanging around.
There's one more from D2 that just drives me insane as far as the science theory. You're talking about popping in and out of in this area. The line that he says in D2, the heliosheath is not the only door into the system.
Oh, that one.
Well, yeah, okay, but let's talk about that a little bit, because there's a connection there to the other agent, well, who's not really an agent, who's more of an emissary, right?
Emissary.
And I think, I know this is kind of a weird time to segue out of, Lost Lore this week is going to be kind of the entire episode, just FYI, guys, because the 9 is kind of Lost Lore. We were kind of joking about that before we got on air. But let's kind of talk about that idea of the doors, because I think, I will make sure to link Bife's video, and Beard, I'll make sure to get from you whichever videos you want me to link as well for your own theories.
All 4 of them.
Okay.
I'm a jerk like that.
Okay. But what I'm saying is kind of the funny thing that, Beard and I always joke about how we're going to argue. And this is another episode where I think we're actually pretty similar opinions. And Bife actually, I think, has a pretty similar opinion. I don't agree with all the steps that Bife took. But the conclusion I agree with.
I disagree about.
Yeah, he made it, and I already messaged him. I was like, I don't where did we find these? Because I just don't remember, and I could be completely wrong. I'm completely open to being completely wrong. But let's
the idea, I think that we're all kind of on, or at least most of us are on the same page of what they quote unquote are.
Yes.
But I think we're all coming to that conclusion and looking at some different entities that work together in a lot of different measures.
Yeah, we're all on different paths, but we're getting to the same clearing.
This is why people hate my videos, but that's fine.
No, but that's why I don't do videos, is because I'd be also there. And, because
I like your videos, Beard.
Fine, nobody has to like them. There's only 20,000 of you that seem to like it.
I'm one of them. I'm a subscriber.
No. Beard. But is this your new channel or your old channel?
Oh my god.
There
Don't
it
you do
is.
that.
There it is.
You're a jerk.
There goes the depression again.
For those, I make fun of him a lot. But anyways.
A lot? You're the reason I go to therapy.
Well, hey, look at this. Look at it this way. You're doing better than Justin. Justin, apparently, what was it that Justin said? He was uncurable or something.
Yes.
But to get back to this idea of a door, right? Like the Emissary presents. I'll be completely transparent. I have never been to the Third Spire. I am not a PvP player. I have no desire or inclination to try. So that being said, that's out there.
That being said, I would like to go to the Spire sometime, and I do like to play PvP. And I'm not
green is the
durable,
exact
so
opposite.
if you would like to help me,
green is the exact opposite of blue.
Play.
Green is the complete opposite of me.
Are you still doing phrasing?
Phrasing.
Guys, I didn't even catch that one. Normally, I notice it as it's coming out of my mouth, but that time I didn't even catch it.
I'm sorry, I had to.
That's fine.
That's going to be the new clean way of being awkward, which I guess it already is. But anyways, the door, right? Mm-hmm. So the Emissary presents itself. I don't know. What are we in agreement? Is there a gender to the Emissary? I would
say their selves, just because you do have, and which is why I did the summary the way I did. You do have the high timbre and the low timbre voice mixed together. It does appear that the higher timbre is the predominant voice, and the lower one is the other half, per se. But I would say that there's still a duality going on there.
Well, and there's, go for it, Beard.
No, there's been this thought in theory that it's like it is a predominantly or feels predominantly female due to some of the, I guess you could say even the clothing choice or something like that feels like it's highly feminized. But there's a lot of theory that suggests it is the quote unquote perfect showcase of like a very gender neutral featured body. And
I agree.
You could very much argue, especially with like the higher tones versus the lower tones, in a lot of instances you feel, and I love how they do this with the Emissary. You listen to it and it's more like the lower vocals are more rumbles. And what's interesting with this is more like, science of sound in some directions and terms here. If you're deaf or hard of hearing, you have an easier time picking up on those tonalities because of the rumble that is felt, like the quote unquote bass that is felt, versus what you'll find with like a lot of like higher pitched female voices or otherwise. They're harder to pick up on because of the frequency. And I find it funny how this one, we do hear that the female voice a lot more predominantly than we do the male voice. But even regardless of any of these facts, the lips don't move in anything that we see.
Can I project something upon that and just add to it real quick? Sure. I think that the Emissary speaks on all frequencies. I think that we're only picking up the ones that we can most distinguish. But no matter who the Emissary is talking to, I imagine that they can hear her in whatever frequency that their inner ear, per se, can actually hear.
Well, and that falls back on a very important point of my entire theory, believe it or not. But largely, it also calls to question how the Emissary is able to communicate with us even during Trials of the Nine. You could pass it back as an idea of simple gameplay, but we know for a fact that there has to be something that communicates with our ghost. We don't necessarily see too much of an example of that, but she or any of them or whatever can potentially communicate with our ghost that way. It's a different methodology, if nothing else, but again plays back to a very important part of my theory. But before I keep blabbering my mouth, Blue, go.
I was going to say just real quick, again, transparency being noted, I have never been here, but Third Spire, I did do a little bit of research because that's what I'm actually pretty decent at, instead of PvP. So there are actually multiple instances of the Emissary on the Third Spire, which I think we've kind of been dancing around, but I just wanted to say that. And the way that we get to see these emissaries, for those of you who are very daring and very good at PvP, not me, is you have to win at least once, and that will get you to the first emissary. Then if you get 3 wins, you will get to the second emissary, and there's different tiers of rewards as well, which most people who play Destiny 2 will probably already know. But there is an entire set of gear or armor. Armor and weapons actually, for each. Yeah, for each class. Every class has a set of armor with its corresponding class. There are actually 2 sets of armor. There is a set of armor for if you just win, which I'll get into just a little bit. But if you win,
a light set.
Yes,
and a dark set.
There's a. Oh, are they actually light and dark?
Yeah, they literally.
That's so cool.
They're reflections of each other.
Nice. So there's a regular set and then what's called the flawless set. So for anyone who's new to Destiny, this is kind of was in Destiny 1. It's been continued in Destiny 2. The difference there is so the entire concept is the same as the Trials of Osiris. This has now become the Trials of 9. And if you go for 7 wins without losing once, that is considered a flawless run. If you get the 7 wins, and I think you have up to 3 losses, I believe is what it is, before you're quote unquote disqualified.
Right.
So if you have,
you do get to the just before the final.
Spire, yeah. So if you have 7 wins, that's not flawless. That is still considered a successful run, but 7 wins and up to 2 losses, it's still considered a successful run, but it is not flawless. So there's a difference here. And those are the armor sets. And I have those names. I'll come back to them in just a second.
They're in the mind map.
Are they in the mind map? Perfect. Green.
Yeah,
green beat me to it.
I put them all in, as well as the guns in the mind map for this week.
Sweet. So, and we'll definitely get back to the guns because I have a kind of a pet theory about those. But for the emissaries, or emissary instances, the first emissary we see after 1 win. After 3 wins, you get to access the second instance of the emissary, and you also are rewarded with a Trials of the 9 legendary engram, which we'll pull from the pool. If you get 7 wins, but it is not a flawless run, you see the third instance of the emissary, and you actually get a choice between 3 legendary engrams. And then if you actually get a flawless run, you get to see the final emissary, which basically is within a special area. And this is the one that you see a lot of videos on, is this massive. It's the same figure, but it's like immense and big. And I think if you look opposite to the area where she is, that's where you're going to see the horse.
It's downward to the right. It's not quite complete opposite.
It's not complete. Okay.
Which is what
important.
Completely screws up positioning of like several thoughts
No,
that
it
have been
doesn't.
out there. No, it completely screws up the obvious thoughts.
That's so good, guys.
The other thing that flawless gives you is not only do you get choice of 2 engrams, you also get an emblem, and then you also get one of the often sought after auras, unless that's changed, which it's possible it has. But so that's the big importance there. The interesting connection between the emissary and Zur, and this is kind of where we kind of jumped on, is the emissary explains itself as a door. And then there are 3 keys. Man, I cannot talk. 3 keys in the trials. Do we have any idea, guys? And I didn't get a chance to actually dig into the concept of the 3 keys. Do we have any ideas what those 3 keys are? Do you guys know? Are they just the victory? Are they the victory benchmarks, or?
I was not able to really figure too much out, minus like some of the she mentions like a couple different things with like conviction, justice, and so on throughout the voice
the opening
lines.
lines.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
But
okay.
really, I can't find anything that like solidifies them as physical keys. They seem more like mental ideas or something
Concepts.
equivalent more than anything. Yeah, they just fit to the philosophy of what the 9 is after with the trial. I think is the overarching idea that at least I was able to come back.
I like 1 fox, 2 fox. The 3 keys are the rock, paper, scissors.
Well,
I'm on board with that idea.
I do have a
Judgment,
theory
death,
behind that.
perfection.
A little bit, not the rock paper
Oh,
scissors.
I was like,
Hold on a second.
I'm impressed. I'm like, I'm
yeah.
I'm waiting for this one because
I'm like,
This is a Justin theory. No, it's not a Justin theory. No,
here
actually,
in spirit.
yes, always here in spirit. We will make puns in his place. No, probably not as many. Actually, if you look at going back to the armor set, and I pointed this out to Blue the other day, that on the armor sets themselves, the 3 symbols that signify the 9 now, instead of the triangle symbol, which I used as the banner background, I did also include these 3 symbols. They're actually representative of the 3 different classes. You have one that is the Titan, one that's Warlock, one that's Hunter. And you can see that on the armor pieces because one of them is filled in for each of the classes.
Mm-hmm.
My theory has to do with the fact that each of those classes, and this Blue, you're going to love this actually relates back to your psychology papers, articles that you've been writing, and that each of the classes is representative of a psychological concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dichotomy of the worldview.
Mm-hmm. And that each of the keys relies on your conquering of each of those concepts.
Oh, so okay. I can get that. I can get behind that theory.
There's no significant proof to it. The only thing I can say that could say definitively is that the 3 circles are representative of the 3 classes. Beyond that, it's just speculation.
Yeah, because I remember when you sent me those images, you're like, do you notice anything? And my immediate response was like, besides the obvious connection of the circles to the class that's wearing them, you're like, no, that was it. It's like, this is a trick question. Green is trying to trick me.
Green was like running through so many theories in her head last night that I tried to like spit them all out at different people, and it just turned into a tiring mess for everyone involved.
Well, one of the instances being that I made you mad. What? A
little bit. I actually woke up angry still at you. And Julie was impressed. She's like, you don't wake up angry at anybody. I was just but.
Well,
love you, Beard.
I'll just put that on as another reason I'm single.
Oh no!
Be wary of Green at Guardian Con.
No,
it's
fine.
If she kills me from like poisoning my drink or something, at least I'm going in a way I would understand and I would respect. All right, if you give the Irish some poison whiskey, it's
too
fine.
Passive aggressive for that.
I'm too passive aggressive.
What are you talking about? Poison is like the best passive aggressive way to off somebody. Why am I talking about this in a public setting? So Viru had actually posted in chat. I don't want to let this go. I guess it's a voice line that I completely overmissed, and that's my bad. The voice line is: one is judgment in all its connotation. The weight of it is a weapon. Another is death, inevitable, relentless. A third is perfection, flawless destruction. 3 keys to unlock irrevocable change. Welcome, Guardian, to the place where everything dies and begins anew. Apparently, this is a...
That's the welcome. That's the welcome speech when you get there.
which I must have ended up like completely missing that, not recording it, whatever. Oh no, wait, I know why. It's because I've never been there.
I know a great video you could watch where somebody has like recorded it and then made his own theory about it. I mean, it's this guy named Bife. Like, he's got all of it. I actually transcribed it last night.
I think there's another guy named Beard that has a couple videos on it too.
Yeah, but he's not at the Spire. Like, he's got the theories, but he's not at the Spire.
So you know how you woke up mad at me this morning? You're well on your way here, Green.
So real quick though. Okay, so real quick, because then Trigger is talking about like the assignment of those to the classes. The connotation of that is actually really interesting because if you need three keys, God, man, I'm just thinking Ready Player One now. But like, sorry, I was like three keys, and oh my gosh, I am going back. Anyways, if you need three keys, is that saying that one person needs to hold the three keys, or does that mean that a team of three needs to be there?
We need to have. Well, there's a team of four now.
No, that throws everything off. That's not allowed.
Yeah, I know. That's the only reason I'm like, it's broken.
Like, wait, have you forgotten one of the Bungie rules, the rule of three? It's always going to be there.
It's always going to be, or seven, or nine.
Or 7 or 9.
9 plays into the rules of 3, but because it's 3 groups of 3.
I mean, look, this is just about on Sith levels, okay? Rule of 2. You can't break that.
Green, what do you got for us?
Fun thing about when you're at the Spire, when you go from the base platform to the first actual platform after getting some wins, it's a triangle.
3 tiers.
It's 3 tiers before you get to the final thing. The first tier that you are on is a triangle. The second tier, how many wins do you have to have? 5.
No. 3.
5. First one, you have to have 3 wins to get to the first triangle. 3-sided triangle.
Oh,
then you have to have 5, which is the pentagon, which is the next one. And then there's a heptagon because you have to have 7 wins. And then you get to the final spire, which is also 7 wins but flawless, and which is the full spire.
And I bet you if they would have thought that it would have made sense for gameplay and not frustrated people too much, it would have been 3, 3, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been nice.
Because then it would have been the trial, like literally the trials of the 9.
The 9.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you want to?
It's too bad that throw it all out. But moving on.
Well, I mean, I guess this is also kind of talking about like we've kind of talked about the agents, and then basically like we've said is this entire episode is kind of going to be a lost lore episode because when I made a note of like, well, what do we know? We know their name, maybe,
sort of,
probably not, but
we know a legend.
Yeah, we know
garden.
Oh my god! Okay,
looking at stranger. Going, okay, we know the legends.
Oh my god! So the legends card. I'm sorry, the legend card is seriously, as a D&D player, I swear to you, the first time I read that card, I was like, oh. This is a gather information results check. Like it reads like if I'm a DM and I have my players in a tavern and they roll a gather information check, this is the legend that you hear about it. Like that is how I read that. I cannot not read that card that way. Like I can't. I've tried to not read it that way, and like because everyone's like, well, it could be that it's one of each, and it's like I swear to you, it's a gather information check card.
I guess it's like legitimately one of those things where it can go from the extreme of one of these means one of each of the 9, or all of these are absolute and complete.
Which you actually talked about in your video.
Yes, I actually fall back though on one in particular, but that leads back to Saint 14.
Which one was the Saint 14 one?
I'm also thinking of the darkness card, but it kind of it kind of plays back with the fleet ideas, but there's 3 of them that make a little bit more sense than most of the others do. The ones about them being like Leviathan intelligences, I feel we throw out. A couple of the others that I feel I do. I won't kill you guys at the typing, but I'll bring it up real quick just to get them in my head again.
Just for while he's bringing that up, just for everyone listening, the card we're talking about is Legends 2. If you would like to look that up at Ishtar Collective. And you could kind of follow along with this. It's the card that makes everybody's head hurt because it also started the theory, unfortunately, or whenever some of the new stuff came out in D2, that the ghost, and what was the name of that lore tab? It's from the sniper rifle, the Long Walk.
Or Long Walk, yeah.
Yeah.
Long Walk. Where the ghosts, there are 9 different ghosts talking to a character named, was it Orin?
Orin, yep.
Yeah, and everyone was just like, that's the 9, the ghosts are the 9. They're not.
Not. I don't, I think to weigh in on my opinion of that, my opinion is I agree. I don't think that they're the 9, and it's not really because of anything definitive, but it's just because in the history of Bungie, they have never done something so blatantly simple like that.
I would say there is more definitive answers to that, but that's also my feelings about the Legends card too.
Well, I mean, just like, I mean, it just, to me, that feels like it's a red herring.
Yeah.
Like, it just...
Funny enough.
Yeah, go for it, Beard.
I actually did find all of my notes that I took for those 4 videos.
Nice.
But it was actually 10 pages worth of notes that I parsed together from all of this.
Excuse me.
So, I should actually mention this, because where I was getting those quotes from Zur from, y'all might giggle at this one. They were underneath my tab for the Ahamkara. And this kind of plays into something that, Legends 2 speaks of to some fair length, and that's actually number 3. The 9 are ancient Leviathan intelligences from the seas of Europa or the hydrocarbon pits on Titan. This also comes back to a helmet that we had in Destiny 1 called the Long Tomorrow 9G. This helmet actually states that somebody had seen an Ahamkara flying around Jupiter. There are a few things that really just kind of drive me absolutely nuts about reading anything about Leviathan intelligences, understanding kind of what the Ahamkara are in their reference of dragons, and then you give me an information piece like this. So this ties back to a fair important piece. The next one, though, kind of tying back to the Long Walk, which Blue has posted here in chat while I've got the card up all the same, but the 9 are ghosts who pierced the deep black without a ship and meditated on the hissing silence of the heliopause. There are 2 pieces that I want to point out from that. 1, ghosts. Long Walk talks about ghosts. It's really hard to read that card as anything but ghosts. The implication that any of these are like small sparks, which is basically little lights. The implication too that they are able to go past the hissing silence and go out into the deep black without a ship. All I can think of from all of that is that there are these other things that are capable of void travel. They were called the Ahamkara. They were void dragons. So in some respects, I am having this very hard time not looking at it as more of like a conglomeration. And that gives the 9 as more of like a conglomeration, if you will, or other pieces that kind of link back to them, or anything that has nothing to do with them and in fact could end up being something that's trying to chase the 9 like Osiris did. And that's where the Legends 2 card basically confuses and makes a little bit more sense out of it. Like, these are the things that we've tried before to catch up with the 9, but are they the 9? Is this still meaning the 9 at all, or is it a red herring?
And on top of that, Beard also from the long walk is, excuse me, sorry, going back to, reading them as ghosts. If you look, they also talk about how each one of them used to have a charge. And then there's a little spat between a couple of them about don't say that because some of us never had charges, but that doesn't mean we don't want them or whatever.
Yep.
And then one of them even refers to one of the charges being Shax. I think, if I remember, I'm going off memory on top of that one, but the Shax is mentioned in there.
They said something like, "You sound like Shax." Yeah, it wasn't that a charge was Shax, but at least.
Oh yeah, okay, so they were.
Yeah, or in sounds like Shax. That's right. I had to look that again.
So I mean,
did I ever tell you my theory on those ghosts?
Well, they can't be Holborns, but go for it.
Oh, God.
So I had kind of thought about Jaggy a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We know of 7 ghosts that ended up returning from an incident with Jaggy's host. And we never really hear any kind of admitted bit that fixed it or had changed at all about these ghosts. So at least 7 of them could possibly be Jaggy's host.
Oh yeah, sorry, I said Holborn, but I meant Jaggy's.
You meant Jaggy's.
Yeah.
They and there's nothing that confirms that, obviously. But it's I think a cute little theory to kind of tie back to that. However, I kind of thought a little bit further on that one. Number 1 doesn't talk. I'm presuming that they had a charge. Number 2 does talk, seems to impose that they had a charge. Number 3 doesn't talk, possibly had a charge. Number 4 possibly never had a guardian, because there are implications that state that they may not have actually been with guardians at some point, or at least a couple of them.
Whole lives without finding.
Bingo. Number 5, 6, 7, do possibly have or had guardians before. These 3 especially are chatty within the card, and they seem to kind of give implication. Number 8 doesn't talk. I'm assuming, though, that they had something at one point. The silent ones, it's hard for me to really put it into words, but I just have this feeling that they speak volumes more because they seem more content than the others do, as stupid as that kind of sounds. But the ninth one is in particular interest because he states how much he is more comfortable in darkness and how much he wants to stay there, or he understands it a little bit better, or so on. And I cannot help shake this feeling that that's Dredgen yours.
I was wondering if that's where you were going with that one.
Yeah.
But I guess my challenge there is do you, if going down this hypothetical train, and let's say that's true, I would think that he would be, he might be comfortable, but I think given the way that we saw the last discourse between him and Yor, I don't think he would be comfortable in darkness.
See, he says that he doesn't understand it. He also states that he effectively doesn't necessarily agree with it, but he still has hope for Yor. He still has this interest in wanting to bring Yor back out from whatever darkness it was that had taken. Right. So my whole theory basically hinges on the idea that Yor's ghost effectively said, I don't want to see my friend fall to this. There is obviously still some semblance of good in him, even if it is twisted to the natures that we expect it to be. But maybe I can still bring him back. I have to go out there to understand the darkness further. in doing so,
okay.
corrupts himself, turns himself into basically the ideas of this small spark, and loses a lot of what he was effectively as. But that's why I feel that it is in some, because we see this twist, we see this shift happen. It's not like it's something that's out of the ordinary for a ghost to have happened. And Jaron Ward's ghost, as funny as it is in the same story, is a perfect example of that. He goes from still a very quiet ghost, yes, but now he goes to a very vengeful ghost, as we start to see in some of the newer stuff in Age of Triumph with Shin Malfur, and how the ghost ends up coming up and saying, well, you know what you need to do. You should probably just go shoot all of those guardians that we have as friends before they end up getting really out of hand. So they can get vengeful, and they can also end up getting to the point where they want to understand and turn back things. Like, I feel like I'm definitely rambling on this one, but they have this mean and measure to want to hold us together, and that is another piece of them to like not understand it. It's just like a warlock. What is it that ends up setting a warlock to madness? Truth. And some ghosts, just as warlocks, want to preserve and think about truth.
Yeah, I mean, they have personality. Sorry, Green. I was just going to say they have personalities, which is very odd for an AI if you think about it. But go Green. Sorry.
I was just going to say it's hard to dispute that the ghosts that are in the Long Walk have not been changed.
Yeah. By
wherever they were.
Which again points to the interesting thing about AI, because I mean, if you think about AI, and this is something that my wife and I have talked about, because I played the other night I was playing the Turing Test, which is an awesome little game. If you haven't played it, it's definitely a fun game. But one of the things is like and this is very common in video games in general, but there's this sense of like AI getting annoyed. You know, you have GLaDOS, or in the case of the Turing, I can't remember his name, the AI antagonist in the Turing Test. And these AI have like emotions, which is very like, if for us it makes sense, you know, oh well, this is frustrating. Like this would be a frustrating situation. The human subject is not cooperating. You would understand getting frustrated. But if you actually sat back and thought about it, an AI doesn't have that. Like there's no it's, you know, if you have an Android, for example, you know, or a complete robot. Sorry, I stumbled over that for some reason. You have a complete robot who's just got an artificial intelligence. That's it. There is no emotion. So like if you program this robot to, if he hears a knock at the door, he needs to answer or it needs to answer the door. See, I even just did that myself. I anthropomorphized him. It needs to answer the door. Well, if you wrap this robot in chains so that it cannot answer the door, the robot will continue to try to answer the door. But at any given point, the AI, this sentient level, never gets frustrated. It's an equation. Knock at door, I need to answer the door. So it constantly tries it. Now, if you have a machine learning process or capability in there, then it might, be able to compute different ways to get around the obstacle that it's being faced. But never once does that AI experience a level of frustration or a level of satisfaction when it actually does open the door. It just goes into a stasis. And actually, Philip K. Dick does a really good job with his short stories and kind of portraying this, in that there is a distinct difference in the way that we perceive AIs and the way that AIs actually work, as far as like machine learning works. There's no emotional response to a completion of a task for a machine. The task is just done, it's actually very foreign to us, like trying to understand how that works. It's very difficult to understand. But the fact that the ghosts have these emotions, whether that is synthetic emotions or even like actual emotions, points to the fact that, just like everything else, I mean, it begs the question, are these actual AI or are these something more? And Beard, you're 100% correct. And that's kind of where I'm kind of going with this, is like the fact that these ghosts have, a sense of vengeance, a sense of curiosity. We have shells for ghosts who do certain things, who feel certain way. Those word choices are technically not applicable to artificial intelligence. And this is begging the question, of course, does this artificial intelligence transcend into sentient, or not to sentience, but like to a degree of self-awareness to the point that it has emotions? Then we can get into that debate too. But I think that's whenever people start talking about ghosts and emotions, that's like immediately where my head goes, is like, but does it? Or is it us portraying, like, is us projecting our emotions onto the ghosts?
Yeah, it's highly debated a point of like how improved, how advanced is this artificial intelligence or AI? Because Ghost goes back and forth so often by saying, who came up with the words AI? And then pretty well in the next sentence ends up going ahead and admitting, well, I'm a computer to a point. Like, we're not getting on like the same basis on this level. Like, I understand that a computer within like most of Bungie's games, like I'll look back at Halo, of course, and this one just as much. Granted, they've got the 2, whatever.
Right.
The
no. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, they also portray back to this thought of, computers have life behind them. The question, of course, for us as humans, because we are organic life, we are the most natural form of life, where a computer would not have. I feel like we got on the AI debate again, like real fast.
We always do.
We always do. Yeah, it's so easy to do, and it still very much pertains back to the 9, which we can. I'll get to here in a little bit here, but the idea that like a ghost has this idea of artificial intelligence behind it, sure. The whole concept though of like, are they legitimized points of emotion? Are they legitimized like souls, stuff like that? They would not exist. A mechanical piece of equipment would supposedly not exist without like some kind of organic life that had involved itself in it, as far as we know, because we still don't know necessarily what the Traveler comes from to begin with. But to tie it back to like what we're talking about here with the 9, of course, these ghosts have been touched in a way that shows that they can be emotionally distraught, I would almost say. And whether the 9 have a measure or hand in it is a very big question. Now, the largest argument, of course, is these 9 ghosts that are within the Long Walk. Are they the 9? And I'm pretty sure that everybody that I know is going to say no. That is way too simple a overall reasoning behind what the 9 is. It is far too simple for what we've seen. Because I don't know something that, granted, I got my ideas behind why they need ghosts because I'm looking at Xur as a culmination of dead cells, just saying what do ghosts do with revives. But this idea that, yes, they could be linked with the 9 in some overall causality, that I would be legitimately more interested in, or understand where that's coming from. And it again gives way to my idea, which counts further into stuff like locale and how the Emissary acts and so on, of why other groups are involved, the Ahamkara being a big one. But before I really lose myself again, somebody else play me off.
I'd actually like to redirect which card we're looking at or which tab we're looking at.
That's probably safe.
Because everyone has talked about a long walk for a long time, and not just us, like everybody has talked about a long walk for a long time. But the card that actually caught my eye more than most of them was the Adjudicator card. for the adjudicator tab. Partially because I'm fascinated with Bungie's use in both the Books of Sorrow and in the new 9 lore tabs with formatting of phrasing to distinguish speakers or personalities. I actually really, really dig it. I think it's cool. But the card in particular it's just the very first line drives me crazy. You sought us out in the deep black. Okay, deep black. Deep has always had a really interesting connotation in Destiny. No one can really deny that one, unfortunately. But I don't think it's the same deep that Oryx went to. Meditation wasn't enough for you. That right there actually makes me wonder about so many questions when it comes to the 9. Go and touch the hissing silence. Do not fear being submerged. Not many ships go that far these days. You went through hell to get one, and then again to get out there. You found the devil himself, a golden snake devil with who poses as God. No more a god than you. You didn't fight him. You turned around. Smart. Others did. While we watched. Blue, Beard stepped out for a moment. So I'm going to say this
I'm sorry.
quick. Well,
are you talking about Nezarec?
I'm going to talk about a lot of things with this.
Sorry.
Because Beard's not here right now.
No, go, quick!
I'm really going to try to squeeze this in here real quick. And as soon as I'm sure I start actually talking about it, he's going to be right back. The concept that this makes me think of actually has to do with another voice line where I think it's the Emissary that says it, where she says, we are everywhere and everything type thing. So kind of an omnipresent type concept to an extent. What I actually think some of this is leading to, my scientific brain going way nuts last night on way too many rabbit holes, was talking about the space between our actual particles.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That there's so much more space between every little physical thing that we have in our universe that nothing's there. It is a void. Where do the 9 that, well, if we're going to get into Bife's video next, Bife talks about where they reside. They reside in the void. The void is the space between things. The 9 could be technically everywhere because they are in between every little piece of you.
Mm-hmm.
Or as often as we talk about. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. I tried to squeeze as much of my sciencey stuff in there while you were gone.
Why are you trying to do science without me? What's wrong with you?
I didn't talk about black holes. I'm saving black holes for later.
All right, that's fine.
Okay.
So, as much as we talk about the stranger and a couple other beings that kind of exist, I like the idea of the void as like the space between things, and I do very much agree with it. I just wonder how far necessarily we want to continue with that idea, especially when I start seeing beings like the Emissary or Zur, where they're pulled from, like, it almost feels like different dimensions. Because if I'm going to be honest with anything, I feel like the 9 could coexist between dimensions,
right?
Which at that point very well explains how they can be everywhere and nowhere, because they are all around us. Basically, they're yeah. You mean like void lords? Yeah, go figure. And if anybody says Nezarec, I swear.
Blue already did.
Oh, you already said it. You already said it. Okay, thanks. You already said it.
I tried to do it when you weren't here, so it wouldn't anger you. See, I was being respectful. I was being respectful of your emotional stability.
I shouldn't have just even brought it up. I shouldn't have even said a thing. I shouldn't have. What was I thinking? Why? All right, I could tell you why it isn't Nezarec, but I'll be nice and let you.
Well, no,
have it.
I don't think the 9 are Nezarec, but I think that the what was it? The adjudicator was what you were just reading.
The adjudicator.
They speak of meeting the devil and them watching. Like, so just in that phrasing, it separates them between the golden snake, which I kind of think is, I just think makes me think of Nezarec. And I don't really have any hard proof there. It just kind of is like, it's just what I feel. And then, but there's a segregation there because they are watching this interaction with the golden snake. So by definition, they are not the golden snake. Yeah, Trigger in chat is saying that too. They said we met the devil, but they were watching us meet just the way that explanation is framed kind of drives a wedge between they are not. I'm not saying that though I am on the same page as Bife in the idea that, the echoes of mythology are very interesting as a potential because there is a lot of Council of 9. What was that?
It's just because it's an ethereal concept that we have to think about with the 9. And yes, the number 9 nicely coincides with lots of different pantheons.
Mm-hmm. Well, not necessarily. Well, not necessarily like pantheons in and of themselves, but the idea of a council of 9 figures is prevalent in a lot of different mythologies. You have, the Greek mythology, which ties into the story of Perseus, not Perseus. I just went blank. Pandora, as punishment for Prometheus. Don't know why I went with Perseus. We have to try to figure out why I connected to Perseus on that one here in a minute. But anyways, so Prometheus, stole fire and all that, and then the punishment was actually Pandora and Pandora's box and curiosity that unleashed the misfortune, if you will, because of human curiosity. And that was the Council of 9 in Greek mythology. That's that entire decision point was decided by hang on, let me try to remember. The 9 in Greek mythology were Aphrodite, Apollo, Athena, Demeter, Hephaestus, Hera, Hermes, Poseidon, and Zeus. Which, by the way, does not, hit the mic there, does not include, I think it's Algir, which is the god of pain in the Greek mythology. So Nezarec, as a self-described god of pain, does not associate with any of those 9 figures. Just FYI, there's no parallel there. And interesting note there, Algir is actually I can't remember, it's a half-sister or full sister of Eris. So, fun fact. But there's also I think someone mentioned it in the chat, the Nazgul from Tolkien, which isn't really mythology, but I mean it's a literary.
That's your brother.
Oh, is that
That's
my brother?
Your brother.
There he is. He's probably coming to get mad at me for not playing Path of Exile with him. But so there's a lot of repetitiveness in the number 9 within our own real mythology, like reality's mythology, not just within Destiny World. So Destiny World. Now I want to go to Disney World. I'm on a really random tangent tonight. Here's a
question for you though. So are the 9 different personalities, or is the 9 a collective?
Maybe a cult of Aeons or something.
Oh, yeah, because that ties into the historical reference of the Council of 9, which is in Italy, in Siena.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was also just thinking the fact that if we believe that the 9 are actually the voices in any of the cards or any of the tabs, I'm going to continually call them cards for the rest of my life.
Entries.
Lore entries. Like any of them, there's only 4 different voices. If we take each of the
I did that. I tried to count them out. Did you?
There's only 4.
Did you account for the difference in punctuation? Just out of curiosity. Okay, so even because I think there was one that had all caps, but it had punctuation, and the other ones there was one that had all caps but no punctuation.
Yeah.
So
There's,
I don't know if you
spaced
segregated
out
those.
all caps. There's like run to get like the spaced out all caps.
And
there's
then the one that's
traditional spelling or traditional grammar. There's all caps with punctuation. There's no caps, like all lowercase.
which is actually the most annoying one to read, by the way.
It's
I
not
don't know.
that bad.
I don't like all lowercase. It's not as bad as alternating caps, but it's nearly there.
At least they have like correct. They still include like apostrophes where they're supposed to be.
This is very
It's
true.
not text speak. But yeah, there's only 4 different voices in the entire thing. And actually, I think the hardest one to read is the all caps completely like spaced out, one space in between each one.
Oh, really?
That
See,
one's
I actually didn't have too much problem with that one. I actually did not have that much problem with that one. But
Is
that's
it because
also
you're busy reading my all cap speech all the time? Is that
well, there is
You're just
that
constantly yelling.
you have desensitized me to the all caps speech, but also the fact it's very similar to a program language. Like I see bodies of text, and I just because of what I do as a job. And
Right.
again,
Oh,
because
God,
it's been so
JavaScript,
super.
Why did you remind me?
Right. No. Yeah. See. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. If I'm looking at JavaScript or C++ all day, that's kind of like my brain just automatically sees like blocks of text and is chunking them. So.
But that's something that I'm curious about is, do we have more than actual 4 voices? Are these actually the 9 in those cards, or are they another
See, I honestly.
grouping?
Are you talking like so for the weapons?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest. I kind of read it as if it's from emissaries.
Emissary can speak in regular tones.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be the.
There's also multiple instances, 4 that we know of.
I mean,
That's true.
I just kind of read it as like the quote, the flavor text quote is from the emissary. Most of them, if I'm remembering, most of them are all from the emissary talking to the individual guardian. And then I don't know. I thought maybe they were the 9. Then I thought maybe they're the ghosts that we see in the long walk. But the discrepancy in the way that the entry is construed between the long walk and the rest of them make it very difficult because they purposely call out individual ghosts in the long walk and they don't do that anywhere else.
Right.
And so then the other thing too is, and this is entirely just me, but when you're talking about that particular text that is all caps, 1 letter apart, I actually, in my head, when I read that, I hear that in that double tone voice, that low high voice that you did the summary in. And I haven't heard the emissary. So I mean, that's kind of, like I said, I'll be honest with everyone. I haven't actually been able to play video games for the last couple of weeks. And,
Besides
that's just
Path of Exile.
once. I've actually only been able to play once. You can ask my brother about that. He's mad at me because of that.
Mad.
But like, it's just, and that's not anything towards the game. That's just if you're in Discord, it's not anything towards the game. It's just life has been crazy. But, like that's actually how I mentally read that, without knowing that was what the emissary's voice was that's actually how I read that, was that dual kind of high-low voice that you were using. That's how I kind of perceived that. So to me, it's like, I don't know. Beard, what do you think?
well, I'm trying to honestly think of a movie that I could reference to it, but the trope is at least something that I'm thinking of. The idea that you walk into like an open council room and then you have, say, 5 people or so at the head. And then you've got one, and that, oh God, it's on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of what it does that I want to reference, but you get one guy that's over here going like, "Thou hast caused a conundrum.
Oh, it's a judgment.
And then
Yeah,
you get
it's a judgment. Yeah.
Pretty well similar to that. But then you go to the next guy over on the other side, and he's all like, "You will suffer this," and it like goes to like a different like tone altogether.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. God.
You get like the real fast talking one, the real slow one, the high pitched one, the really low voiced one, the one that actually speaks normal, so on. And they're just parts of the whole. And I still feel like there's this idea that kind of fits in with the 9, where we see, especially with like the lore tabs entry, so on, where they have some that will actually showcase themselves. And then there's still others that are off kind of doing the dirty work, if you will. If you look back over at, I'll bring it up only because I just got done watching a little bit of it. I just got done watching The Defenders on Netflix finally. I'm still trying to catch up with everything on the Netflix Marvel stuff.
It's
and
good.
Of course,
good. It's so good.
Except Iron Fist, I really didn't like Iron Fist.
You're in the majority on that one, so.
But I'm thinking about the hand. You know, there's 5 fingers that kind of solidify that whole idea, if you will. Yes, there's 5 that are at the head, and I guess in this case there could be like 9 that are at the head, or there's like
just
3.
Can I make a correction real quick before you go on, and it'll tie into it a tiny bit? Neo brought up there's actually 5 different voices.
Right.
Not 4. I was mistaken.
So what I'm kind of thinking on this idea, there may be, and I know that there's like 5 voices that exist from the stuff that we kind of see within the lore tabs, but think of it like 3 do this, 3 do that, 3 do another. In just like a different tiny piece or different parts of the whole, etc. I'm kind of just spitballing at this point in that respect, but that's where like I kind of get this idea reading over the lore tabs. Like there's the different voice levels that kind of fit into it. There are still some that can talk and figure on philosophy, while others have to go out and actually do something. You know, it's like New Monarchy versus Future War Cult. Some of us have lives to live.
Hey.
So basically, to sum up, Beard, and to cut off this entire nonsense between the 2 lesser factions. Sorry, I couldn't help that one. But so the 9 are Hydra.
Yeah.
Hail Hydra.
Hail Hydra. So, but interesting
like
connection.
America at the end of that episode.
We don't talk about that. But
what's that? What's that about hating Iron Fist? I think I hate that more.
That was such a weird. Anyways, interesting note about that though actually is that in Greek mythology, the Hydra was actually naturally born. Well, it was born with 9 heads. Mm-hmm. So an actual like a Hydra in mythology, not Marvel, but an actual Hydra in like Hercules and the 12 labors, those are born with 9 heads, and that's the mythical serpent creature that if you cut off a head and you don't burn it, when you cut off a head, 2 heads grow. So, but yeah, so there is actually a really random connection to Hydra with the 9, like a Vex Hydra. Oh gosh.
Can we talk about a very scary possibility that came up in one of the cards?
Yeah, go for it.
Rasputin is hiding from the 9.
I don't blame him.
Check out A Sudden Death.
Is that the lion? Yeah. Is that the lion robot?
Yes.
Yeah.
You spoke with the deep orbit minds. We heard what you asked, but they had questions too. The lying robot no longer lies with others.
So
Where is he?
Yeah. Here's my problem with that. There's so many possibilities with that particular line. It could be Rasputin.
The lying robot?
Yeah. It could be exactly. Yep. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's Fellwinter. There. I mean, if you really want to be kind of out there, there's Cade. Because
that would be
we have
hilarious.
Well, but I mean, think about it. We have Grimoire cards in which Andal kind of like jokingly calls Cade Rasputin. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, this is all biased perspective, but you know, if Cade is lying about stuff, which I totally would not put past him because he does it all the time, you know, you could call Cade a lying robot. Actually, you could probably call Lakshmi a lying robot because we don't know anything about her history. The Stranger, you know, I mean, any of the exos could be in some way configured to a lying robot.
I take offense to that.
Well, I know you do, but I mean, seriously, though, I mean, her entire presentation is that she's shrouded in mystery and loves secrets.
Oh, I wasn't talking about Lakshmi. I was talking about me.
Oh,
I'm an exo warlock.
oh, okay. Well, calm down,
Yeah.
Deej. Calm down, Deej.
Thanks a lot.
I'm a little curious as to actually who they're speaking to in this.
Oh,
Are they speaking to us?
Necro has a good point, too. Callus is a robot.
Yeah.
At least one form.
Well,
of them,
yeah,
at
one
least,
form
yeah.
of them.
Very
Benedict.
Right.
true. Right?
Oh, Benedict.
I just don't know who they're speaking to. Are they actually speaking to us? Because did we speak to Deep Orbit
See,
Minds?
and that's where, like, I kind of question: are they speaking to us or are they speaking to Orin? Is this a conversation between the ghost and Orin?
I don't think it's the ghost.
The ghosts don't show this same level of
Accusation.
weird, yeah, and they also don't show this level of like voicing and the way that they do. Like
Right.
they, at least the ones that we see, they do talk in a typical tone.
Yeah, the
True.
formatting doesn't
True.
change.
Yeah.
And referring back to my notes, there's only 3 of them in which we haven't seen talk.
Mm-hmm.
So unless one of
Fair.
them decides
Okay.
to say that they want to eat my liver with a side of fava beans, then I've got nothing to worry about.
Calm down, Hannah.
Yeah, you know, that just to get the point across. But that's at least to kind of suggest that I think the idea that they're the ghosts, no. I still think that the others, aside from the long walk, would say that it's other beings. What they are is the question. And I know it's not the Ahamkara because we already know that the Ahamkara end up voicing themselves well enough by the looks of things.
Oh, reader mine.
Oh, co-host mine. Yeah, and just all these cards, they seem to like have such just a tie into everything we've done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find it's the prosecutor card.
There's the illusion of having answers.
Yeah.
Well, there's not. Yeah, sort of. I mean, there's the illusion, or not the illusion. The prosecutor card drives me crazy because it mentions things that we did in D1,
Well,
as well as other things that I don't know what it's referring to.
Well, go for it, Beard.
the one thing, just to say kind of quickly on any of this, the more vague you are, like a fortune teller, eventually you're going to hit something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's effectively how I read a lot of the, like, yes, they're referring to certain things, but you know what? I can throw 21 lines in a hat and get something that might look very similar.
What?
How do they know
You
about
write
the things
horoscopes?
We've done though.
You write horoscopes? What?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know.
Help me! I'm trapped
not
in a
at all.
fortune cooking factory.
Oh, gosh.
Oh god, that joke. They specifically call out though things that we've done as the main player.
as the guardian.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this kind of, I kind of mentioned this in our chat real quick, but this kind of ties back into this nagging feeling that I have about the weapons in particular. I cannot look at the name of those weapons without, and this kind of goes into the idea of how do we read these? In what order do we read these? Because we have multiple entries. So is there a particular timeline, a linear progression that we should be reading them in? And so when I look at those particular cards, I can't help but think of it as a judicial process. And this kind of ties back into my very extensive theory of the Trials of Osiris and its tie-in to the Trials of Ma'at from Egyptian mythology. And there's a lot of parallels between those two. But the Trials of the Nine also are literal trials. They are trying us to find out who's worthy, and they measure the worthiness on who goes flawless. which is very similar to what Osiris did. And, even in Egyptian mythology, that was what Ma'at did at the behest of Osiris. And, that was a very rigid process that ended in the Isle of Flames, which was ironically very similar to what Mercury was. But the Trials of the Nine, like if you look at the names of these weapons, you have the prosecutor, the adjudicator, the a swift verdict, judgment, the long walk, a sudden death, the end, and relentless is also out there. So judicial process thinking, a possible, and this was just kind of me throwing ideas around, and it kind of just kept coming back around, is like if you read it in order of a judicial process, it kind of would be like the prosecutor would be first, relentless would be second, then you get a swift verdict, the adjudicator, which is basically the person who announces the verdict, the judgment, a long walk, which anyone who's seen a Green Mile knows what this is going to, a sudden death, and the end. And honestly, that's a summarization of the basic concept of a judicial process. So I'm not saying that that's definitively, the best way to read them or anything, but it's something that it keeps nagging me for just the weapons. And Beard, what do you got?
Oh, I was just going to say they forgot the best weapon of all, and that's after long walk off a short pier. That's coming out later. It's actually a grenade launcher that rivals the Colony.
Oh God! That gun can go burn. I'm so tired.
Are you sure it wouldn't rival the Fighting Lion and be terrible?
You mean the gun that you punch people with?
Yeah, I really wish I would just punch somebody with it, to be honest. I think it would do more damage.
I'm just glad it doesn't track you like the stupid Colony one does.
It should.
No, it shouldn't.
No,
that gun should. Drives me crazy. You don't. Anyway, that's my PvP rant for the night.
I forgot one. Is there a heavy machine gun called the Appeal? Did I forget a weapon?
Oh God! Why are you bringing up heavy machine guns?
Did I forget a weapon?
Oh no, he's being facetious. Man, see, okay. I got all excited because I saw heavy machine gun.
I mean, there's season 2 guns. There are 4 more guns from season 2.
There are
Darkest Before, Purpose, The Last Breath, and Cold Sweat. Those are the season.
But see, that
guns,
still fits. That still fits, actually.
Yeah, it does.
Especially if the punishment. Or sorry, go for it, Green.
No, it's just if you're thinking about the process of being judged, and the Emissary talks about judging you at the Spire, like she talks about the process of, oh, maybe you can survive this. Judgment falls upon you like the night. Perhaps you understand, not like the others. I mean, she talks about she is a judge. She says that she is judgment, or they are judgment. And I'm still not convinced that there's more than one emissary. I just think it's more than one instance of the same emissary.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree with that.
But,
to be honest.
The things that the emissary says at the Spire, these are the things that drive me crazy the most, because it's the concept of you're breaking yourself down and proving yourself worthy. Like, why would we be getting guns that lead to our end, concept-wise by the name, if we are proving ourselves not to go to that end personally through the trials?
But who says that it's our end?
But you're getting rewarded with a line of thought of
right. No. But I mean, why? So okay, all right. I mean, and I get that, and I see where you're coming from. But I guess my counterpoint is, since we are the ones being given the guns, who says it's not us that's going to be the firing squad, if you would, at the end for whoever is being judged as unworthy?
Right. And that might just be their intent for that whole thing.
And then, yes, Black Flag also ties into, she is saying, welcome to the place where everything dies, ...
Yes.
That's where
and
begins anew.
This. I think that we are causing our own death as, just think of like, just the death of the childhood and
It's a
becoming
catalyst.
the adult.
A catalyst.
Yeah, it's right. The trials is a crucible, but even more intense because you actually leave behind everything that was before.
I'm getting this big feeling while everything else is like, no pun intended on this one, but traveling through the universe. I feel like the 9 are this traveling judgmental or judicial system at this point now. Like the more that we're sitting here talking about it.
Well, and that
Like,
kind of
that's
ties back into the concept that Bife was kind of mentioning when he was talking about the Void Lords as these like ethereal, not necessarily entities, but these ethereal things that are seeking balance. You know, you have Ulantan, who's talking about the symmetry and, you know, the natural balance between light and dark. And, you know, Green, I like where you're going with the catalyst, because that's, you know, again, kind of going back to the actual meaning of the word crucible. That's what it is. It's burning away the waste. It's burning away the imperfections to get us stronger and more pure metal. So it's literally baptism by fire. And I mean, I totally kind of think that could be the direction that they're going with for the 9.
Yep, I could see it.
I mean, if the 9 are literally the balancing judges between light and dark, because they have concepts of both within them. I mean, look at the Emissary. The Emissary is both a light creature and a dark creature at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Well,
no, I mean, like,
I would say they're more than awoken,
right?
though.
But
like
but
the Emissary
again,
itself,
so
but
going
similar,
right? But going off the play of the actual word awoken, it is an entity that has been awoken. And that kind of goes back to what you guys were talking about at the top of the episode, you know, about why it appears to be a feminine figure. You know, going kind of taking a look at actual, you know, in reality, religious artifacts and religious caricatures of angelic beings, especially within Christianity. All of those beings, if they're not cherubs, which are their own special case and oddities, but most of those beings are very androgynous. Like they're neither male nor female, and they're described as such. They're neither. But if you look at their faces, they're much more delicate. You see this also with like Tolkien elves, or any elves really. They're these ethereal, beautiful creatures that are really kind of not really either, but they're always a little bit more feminine. Like, and it's not. I don't mean that as a negative. It's that the feminine figure especially within the face, is seen as more otherworldly. It's generally not, you know, the ruggedness of. Well, okay, let's talk about, just real quick, fantasy races. If you look at the difference between an elf and a dwarf, if you look at the faces, the dwarves are going to have much more masculine faces. Even the female dwarves are going to have much more masculine faces. The elves are going to have more feminine figures. And that's just always is. Yes, and we never trust an elf. Ever. It's
the concept of symmetry.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say, is like that idea is just, that's always kind of been there. So like, to me, I think, and I don't mean that kind of tongue in cheek about the awoken. I think it literally is a nod to the fact that emissary is awoken to what the 9 are. They have been awoken to the reality of what they're serving. Beard.
Just additional examples. Look at Michelangelo's works with with what he did in the Sistine Chapel, so on. Especially with like angel figures of like Gabriel or Michael, they're stern figures, but they're ones that are still like gentle and not as demeaning. I think that there are other good examples of like what we would kind of showcase back to it as like we joke how, you know, Japan is all about the androgyny, but honestly, the Renaissance was all about it.
Well,
yeah,
like there's so much all over the place.
Yeah, well,
it's the yin and yang,
and it's funny with the way that all of that goes together, because us ripping ourselves, and I find this funny to look at it like this, but the idea of the Dark Ages, pulling ourselves from the Dark Ages and going to the Renaissance, all of a sudden we go to this idea of like educating ourselves almost all over again, or like revaluing everything that we see. So this idea of balance, as we're saying, with the yin and yang and so on, all of a sudden we're kind of like building to this different. We're rebuilding these concepts that we've had for ages, and most of them were born in the same measure as how it was with the original Renaissance. I just find that
the Guardians are the Irish.
Yeah, really. I guess that's why they like to get drunk.
Oh my. Just Cade.
I'm sorry. You're talking about the Dark Ages and, the education coming out of the Dark Ages, and That's where my brain went.
I wondered how you got there.
The Irish saved civilization. I'm like, I'm not even Irish, and I will give them the credit for that.
And it wasn't just the potatoes.
Well, the potatoes had a bit to do with it. No, yeah. If anyone's interested, the history of that entire process is really actually very fascinating. But we won't get into that.
To kind of wrap up the whole concept of creating a balance or creating an understanding of yourself, the final lines in what was Black Flag mentioned it earlier, the relentless entry, and yet who dies more than they do? None. Only when they accept this can they be born anew, be relentless. It's us being okay and accepting our own what we are, because we're constantly fighting. We're constantly trying to find out who we are. What is our history? We're trying to just continually try to live. And when you can finally accept it, then you can really, truly be relentless.
And so are you saying that we're going to be the dark sky? Is that what's going on
here? I like where you're going with that. Oh man, I just lost where I was going because I like that connection.
Sorry.
No, to kind of take that into a little bit of a deeper, kind of conversation, going back to the articles that I'm writing about the psychology. That's really ultimately, not to get too meta, but that's really ultimately the question of human existence is, what are we? What are we here for? What is the purpose? What is my purpose? And excuse me, that's actually kind of the interesting connection that any well done game, in my opinion, really kind of ties into ultimately, because it's a question that hopefully everyone can answer. And, sadly, everyone usually there's a lot of people who don't answer it. And, psychologically, there's a lot of conversation to have on that. But the idea of, accepting who you are and not just accepting it, but making that acceptance allow you to be relentless and to take a plunge and really, in not just accept, but embrace who you are it's not just something for guardians. It's something it's a human question, which kind of ties back into, the whole thing of are guardians human? Are they part of humanity? And in this regard, yeah, they are, because in the same sense that a human spends their entire life, albeit a much shorter life than a guardian's, or, even a golden age human who's got a triple lifespan, all that means is that they have longer to question. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have a better answer. You look through mythology, and this kind of ties back also to the concept of the echoes in mythology. A very common trope is this quest. Campbell calls it the hero's journey. There are many others who have different terms for it, and it's a very debated topic in literary criticism. But the idea still is, at the base of it, it's the question. What is the point of life? What are we here for? what am I here for? You know, to make it even more personal. And it's actually, to me, kind of reassuring that even these super powerful guardians have this question. You know, it's like reading your favorite comic book hero and seeing, and comics have gotten much, much better at this recently. But seeing that, you know, it's okay to struggle with these things. Like I don't mean to get too deep with that, but it's kind of, for me, that's actually kind of the really cool thing about this entire conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Green,
Can
I know
I-
you said, go for it.
I just want to, like, Vuru brings up the concept of sword logic, and it's really easy to dive into sword logic because sword logic is super applicable to a lot of things. But what we go through for the trials is not sword logic in any way, shape, or form, because in sword logic, you continually kill to sharpen the stone. In the trials, you have to work together as a team, and you can die and be revived, and you have to adjust constantly. Like, the idea of constantly killing, you can't be flexible. You can't die because that doesn't sharpen the blade. With trials, each death you learn from, you adjust. I can't assign sword logic to the trials because I don't think they're equitable.
You adapt.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of ties into another article that I kind of want to, I'm hopefully going to probably get a chance to write after I get done with this next one on the dichotomies. But the difference between the darkness and the light is actually very, you can kind of see this in the presentation of the Hive as vampires. The vampire mythology, or the vampire mythos, I guess, at its core is actually talking about natural abominations. A natural progression of life requires evolution and adaptation, which basically equates into change. The Hive don't really have that, and vampires especially don't have that. They are eternally locked into the same state, which is kind of their curse, is they have been put outside of it. That's why they are considered unnatural. And that's kind of the same thing as the sword logic. They basically cheat life. They cheat nature to allow themselves to win. And what Green is actually pointing out, and I'm 100% agreeing with, is that is the definition of the difference between what sword logic is and what Darwinism is. It's the argument between egocentrism and allocentrism. So to back up a little bit on those, egocentrism is the idea that I am above everything else. It's the ego above all. Allocentrism is the idea that others are before me. It's the group above the self. So Green, you're saying that in chat right now. Sorry. Green is saying that sword logic is all about perfecting the self, perfecting me. Whereas trials and the Crucible and most of the Guardian PvP things that we see in game are all about the pack, the group adapting, the pack getting stronger. Because, you know, as a wolf pack, we take down, you know, this is kind of similar to what I was talking about in the Kingsfall episode way back when. Yeah, Oryx is a great big lion. He's a #1 apex predator. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because against a pack of wolves, he doesn't have enough support. A pack of wolves can take down a huge predator. They do it all the time, and it's because they divide and conquer. And that's the strength of the pack, is that you have a multitude of fronts that you can attack from. You can be an apex predator, and if you're up against a human, you know, well, humans travel in packs. We're not the strong. I mean, sorry to break it to anybody who is misguided here, but you're not the strongest you're not the strongest animal on the planet. You know, it's just, you're not. You're very weak. You don't have natural protection that some animals do. But we have opposable thumbs. You know, yay, opposable thumbs. And also we travel in groups. So, and then actually I really agreed, if you're okay, did you want to wrap anything of that, or?
Oh no, just me continuing to.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just wanted to make sure, because I actually really like what
Beard's
Black.
got something though.
I really like. Okay, Beard. What did you have?
I was honestly just going to be boring and tie it back to the loot because the 9 don't have a sword.
Yeah,
However,
no, they
I
don't.
can know of and point out one.
That's
other,
really funny, actually. I did not even catch that. That's awesome.
Yep, that was one of the things that I actually used as like one of my tipping points. They are one of the only factions in the entire game that do not showcase that they have a sword in any logical way. And meanwhile, we look at the and I say faction, but I mean the tower as a whole is now developing swords. But we look at Callus. Callus has a sword, and it's called It Stared Back, for God's sake. It is like legitimately talking about the instance of it looking into the void. So, yeah, the idea that I would really point it more as like a raid is the idea of sword logic quite a bit more to the adaptation and idea of a trial with the 9, because where a raid, when you die and the whole squad dies, darkness has consumed you. You're done. Versus what happens with the trials, where you can get pulled back into it and it's fine. Like, no harm, no foul. Just learn from what you did.
Sorry, chat's throwing in before season 3 introduces a trial sword.
Yeah, really.
Sorry, that's
for now. I'm on
Veru and Black Flag are both throwing that into chat. That's funny.
Yeah.
But no, Black Flag actually made a comment earlier, and I kind of wanted to go back to that real quick. He said, also think about what happens when we as mortals come to grips with our own mortality. We become in a way enlightened and fearless. We become relentless. I mean, if you think about it, that is kind of what, again, going back to kind of that conversation, that statement that I was making earlier, that is kind of what they're talking about, is come to terms with what you are.
That's the whole point of D2.
Right. Yeah, no, it is. It's rediscovery. It's discovering, and I've said this a couple times. Destiny 1's story was all about building the world. Destiny 2's story is all about putting the people in the world. And I think that kind of, to me at least, and this is just my personal opinion, that's kind of how I've come to peace with a lot of like some of the inconsistencies that we've argued about. And that I've seen a lot of people argue about. I think that is the emphasis on those inconsistencies is also kind of driving the realism of the game world into everyone who's experiencing it. And again, just my opinion, and that's just kind of how I've come to terms with it. So, but yeah, I don't really have anything. I will, like I said, I'm going to link Bice's video. I will try to find the playlist for Beard, apparently.
I probably should put that in a playlist. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's not easy to find each of them because you also don't have numbers on any of their titles, so you have to start listening to...
really good point.
I mean, I started listening to one of them that had the dragon, and the very first line is, "Wait, stop. This is the second one. Go back to the first one. You missed it." I was like, wait, which one's the first one? I have no idea what order this is.
Wow.
I mean, at least he gave you a warning.
Yes.
I mean, I have all 4 of them where I'm like, hey, if you missed the last 3 of them, the links are here just to make it super simple for you. But yeah, I should probably just put it in a freaking playlist. That was actually the entire idea behind putting them all into one video. But some people actually said that they enjoyed the transitionary material a little bit more, and it was impossible for me to include that transitionary material into the final, 45-minute long episode. There is no way I could have. If you are able to watch it in its entirety, it is almost about an hour long. It is apparently better viewed that way, so many have said. I don't know. Watching it myself, I can kind of see both ways is fine. But yes, I will make a playlist about that probably when we're done the show, and I'll get you the link for that.
Cool.
I have several million other points that I could go ahead and add for the 9, but I think before we make this a 6-hour-long podcast, I won't even start talking.
I think you should make. Never mind. I'm not gonna poke that.
If you say a 5th video of a 9,
no, I was gonna say.
to God.
I was gonna say. I think you should make a separate channel for that.
Who's the one who actually has the soundboard? Everybody, if you haven't figured that out,
that's why it was perfectly timed.
On the soundboard while he was saying that because he wanted to poke the bear. We do have a dispatch, though.
Oh, we do. Go for it. Mm-hmm. Hang on. Let me cue that up.
Dispatches received from the wilds.
So the dispatch we actually have is a guy in chat right now, and he messaged me earlier, and I thought it was a pretty decent dispatch. Black Flag, he asked earlier today on Twitter, do you believe it's possible the 9 are interdimensional deities that only interact with the most crucial beings of the solar system, such as Osiris, Eris, Marasov, and us?
I think part of that's accurate.
I see where it's going.
I do. I think the first part is accurate. Of course,
I'm going to say that ties back to like the
Void Lords
interdimensional idea for sure. What's that?
The Void Lords. I mean, like, yeah. I think we could probably spend a bit of time splitting the hairs on what you mean by deities.
Yeah, it's like that's where I tend to buck against because I have a hard time.
But I mean,
feeling. Because every god that we have come up against is not infallible.
Well, and this goes along with the idea that, like, when a tree falls in the forest, does it still make a sound? You know, this concept has been widely argued for, you know, how long overall, and the correct answer, realistically, is yes. The non-existence of what we perceive as there is no thing does not mean that thing does not exist. If that statement makes any sense at all.
Just because someone's not there to perceive it doesn't mean that something to be perceived doesn't happen.
Correct. This is the entire idea behind science and the further attributes of science and why the community as a whole is pretty wide and open. It is to allow more people in to test theory, to practice theorem, to try and prove things wrong, to prove them right or otherwise. These are the things that we end up finding, like dark matter. We had no idea that it was an exact concept or science until we ended up having some means of somewhat tracking it.
And then we're still. You could see it. I found it. They have proof. It's on science.com.
Yep, I gotta say where
that's like the gravitational waves thing that I was listening to earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and those things are now like you. What is one of the best examples of it? Actually, I can't remember the star system, but there's a larger star that's there, and then you have another star that ended up collapsing in on itself, that formed itself into being a black hole or pretty similar to it. This collapsed star is now pulling energy from the other sun, but nobody without the proper equipment was able to see that this star was basically being like pulled apart at one seam. And now we ended up realizing that, this is a binary star system. And it's because the other system was like moving it around. I think that's one of the best examples of just because we think that there's only one star in a system or one thing that's there doesn't mean that others couldn't exist. I will point at Tatooine as one of our favorite ideas of more than a single sun that would end up existing, even if it is just a popular fiction. Mm-hmm. But that whole concept is something that wasn't going to be born unless we found it, and we did. We constantly explore, and our nature as human beings, I mean, exploration is a big thing for us. Mm-hmm. So for us to continue to look into everything, to continue to expand our horizons, is in our nature. So to say that, and my entire reasoning for this is really long-winded for my point. Actually, that's nothing new. Why am I even saying that?
It's like we're par for the course so far, Beard.
It pretty much is. We have no evidence that supports, at least per right now, in the Destiny lore or mythos, that would suggest the positive existence of void beings or anything that could travel between these existences seamlessly this way. We have theorem. We now need to prove that theorem, or we now need to get additional information behind it. And that's just in our nature. That's just in the way that human beings are. And be it human, awoken, exo, we are all of the same kind of mind and same kind of focus that we are explorers. Be that in science, be that to different planets, be that to the bottom of the ocean, whatever it may be, whatever it would be that we want to take ourselves to.
Yeah.
That is in our nature, to continue to learn and continue to view things. Eventually, we may end up getting it to the key point that we can see these void lords or whatever they may be. But the concept of possibility, I don't think should be pushed away, that there is something that, because obviously there's something that's watching us otherwise and being able to view us. It would be pretty easy to explain it all away as just being like, I've been there since the beginning. I've been following your travels since day one. I just never had to get involved.
Well, I don't think we had their attentions from day one, but we do have their attentions now.
Maybe I should state it as their attention, maybe the moment that we ended up doing what we did in the Black Garden. Because that's a pivotal point, of course, within everything within Destiny's mythos, for sure. Like, that opens up a larger world for the entirety of what we have. So I think at least that part where the Traveler is finally able to start to heal itself, now we're a little bit more interesting.
The nice thing is there's so much to speculate on the Nine. Like, for as little of information we actually have from them, I think I could do another 2-hour podcast on this.
1 hour of full content on a YouTube channel where I just yammer. Yes, there's plenty.
There's plenty to talk about.
I mean, the other concepts, or a couple concepts, I've talked about the Ahamkara a little bit off and on. I haven't gone into my full theories on that. I haven't gone into my ideas that the black hole that we actually go to, because yes, it is a black hole.
Yay! He said it!
It is not.
She was waiting for that door to open. Huh?
Oh, I know.
I bugged him about this last night.
Well, and
it's still problematic. I totally agree with you. It's problematic, but it's totally a black hole.
It is a black hole, and there's been a lot of people that have also been speculating that is a similar concept to a wormhole. I want to debunk that real fast right now. Wormholes don't have that much space junk around them. Thank you.
I can tell you the reason they got that concept is because it's an older theory with black holes that once you reach the center, there was a possible folding of dimensions, and that it was a possibility to use it like a wormhole.
Well, and that's where it's still actually speculated that way, as like many thought experiments. What happens when you come up to the event horizon of a black hole? Will it end up sending you to different areas? Will you actually see what's
there?
inside?
That's
the challenge.
That is a challenge.
That's not even a challenge. You can't get there.
Yeah, I'll link the
challenge.
I'll link the TED Talk that I actually listened to about that, because there is an entire 5-minute segment where one of the astrophysicists is actually explaining why that's not physically possible. Like it's a fun thought experiment, but it's not you're talking about you're talking about a thing that even something like light can't escape from. You're not gonna
you're dense. Closer it gets.
You're not going to. Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
A really good book on that, if you want to do a book instead, is Elegant Universe by Brian Greene. Highly recommend that one. It's an older one, but it's still applicable.
So following along with the, which kind of goes along with my shout outs, but I'll I'll do this one completely apart from everything early. Following along with the passing of Stephen Hawking, 2015 JPL Jet Propulsion Lab had viewed one of our closer black holes as expending light, sending light out of it.
They had a special name for it too, like a torch or
I'm
something.
I gotta say, I forget the actual name itself, but yeah, they've added some. Hawking's radiation. I think they even like popped to it because he had that thought too that there were some means that like light could pop from it for some reason heretofore not understood. But there is seemingly something that can escape from it or react within a black hole that causes it to go poof, and it escapes in this large funnel that had only up until now been showcased as artist's rendition, but apparently has been caught through like past light through telescopes and everything.
Yeah, going in front of other items.
Yeah, then that again, TED Talk that I'll link. The first one that speaks to it, I think, is one of the theoretical physicists. He is talking about I've mentioned it a couple times, the gravitational waves. Gravitational waves, like basically, it's what they use now to prove the existence of supermassive black holes and all these different things that technically are invisible. They're not invisible if you use gravitational displacement to monitor them, because they are so massive that is actually, it's not so much that it's like for gravitational waves, it's not so much that it's escaping, and I'm using air quotes here. It's not that it's escaping. It's what was he explained it.
Can I make it easier? Okay, so remember the solar eclipse? It functions much like the solar eclipse. When the moon went in front of the sun, it blocked out all the light, but you still saw light. It's because light can bend around it. Same thing happens when the gravitational waves get disturbed. It can still bend. It warps space and time.
He explained it like so if you imagine the universe as a body of water, as the ocean, you'll notice that the ocean is never still. There's always ripples going on. And so if you imagine gravitational waves as if the ripples are the gravitational waves, that's how you perceive things. So everything, no matter what it does, is creating ripples. Like just moving your hand, you are creating a gravitational wave. Now, it's very small. Right.
Being.
There is, I mean, you can get down to the point where you're talking about the vibration of individual entities. Like the cells will vibrate at a certain frequency. But those produce gravitational waves. And that is actually, they have designed this like immensely complex tube basically that monitors those gravitational waves. And they've like, this just blows my brain. They can calculate based off the gravitational waves that they monitor what is going on out there in, these quote unquote unknown spaces that we have yet to explore or even be able to see. We can now see them in the scope of gravitational waves. It's really actually if you have an hour, I really strongly recommend at least listening to this TED Talk, because I don't Green can back me up on this. I don't really have a lot of interest in this stuff, and
I love it. I
couldn't stop. Like I turned on this TED Talk and I was like, I'll listen to this because I'm sure Green's going to bug me if I don't know at least something. I couldn't put it down. It was a really well done talk. And it's just an hour.
Gravitational waves is a fairly recent
it's
proven theory.
2 or 3 years, I think.
Not even.
I think
they got the first instance of it happened 2 or 3 years ago. That's another instance that happened within the last year.
It took a while to find another instance of it to actually back up what.
Oh, okay. Because I was like,
that was the problem.
Maybe that was what he was. That's probably why he was labeled a theoretical physicist,
right?
At the time,
you're still everyone.
Right. True. But I think the TED Talk, it's called "Peering Deeper into Space." It's from TED Radio Hour, I'll link this all into the show notes. But they were talking about this being like the cutting edge, and I think this was like a year or two radio. So, but yes, do you guys? I mean, I will totally stay and talk for hours about black holes, but do you want to do shout outs?
Well, just to finish up my entire thought.
Oh yes, sorry.
Process on all of that. As much as there are two laced possibilities that kind of fall back on this black hole that we see. Now, one, we do see that Savathun is able to apparently travel through it in the Books of Sorrow, which, we're still questioning the validity of to begin with. But secondarily, I'm still wondering where that black hole is, how we got to it, and how it's not affecting our system in any way if it happens to be intersystem. Because if there is one anywhere close to, but black holes don't necessarily
they tend to mess things up.
Yeah, they also don't tend to necessarily move through space too much.
Mm-hmm.
They're like everything is in a constant rotation. This much is very true, but they tend to stay within a singular place, if that makes a little bit of sense.
Everything
within a
comes
system,
to them.
Basically. And if we had something inside our solar system as a black hole, and it was further out, let's say even like Neptune, Uranus, Pluto areas, it's going to cause a whole heck of a lot of problems, and we're probably never going to visit those planetary areas ever again. It would completely screw up their orbits and entirely mess everything. So it is either terrible science on the part of Bungie,
Or
makes no sense. What's that?
Or they're not actually having us go to a physical place, like my mind trip comment that I made to you last night.
Which ties back to my concepts on the Ahamkara and how they are excellent at manipulation.
Or we're not even in the same universe at that point, and that we somehow did go through a wormhole that magically opened up, which is quantum physics is a possibility, but a very, very, very slim possibility.
Well, and there is something else that kind of ties back to the anguish of Dresden, where we're talking about the lost First Fleet out at Saturn, and I will fully acknowledge that I have understood that NASA thought originally there was a black hole or something like it around Saturn, and that is actually what caused the weird storms that actually form within the stratosphere of Saturn. I am fully prepared to go ahead and admit that I fell back on that idea, and that may be where we're like shooting through and getting out to this unknown area of space again. But there's nothing that purports that that's actually the case.
The other thing is I kind of agree with Hurt and Chad on this one. It opens up only when we win a match in trials.
Yeah.
So it is more like a pocket dimension that opens up specifically for that just looks like which if a pocket dimension would open up, it would look like a black hole. Because it would have to have so much energy, it would function much like a black hole would.
So it's kind of like a door.
It's like a door. But
we just see so many other pocket dimensions that exist, however, within what Destiny is, and none of them look like that.
But
that's my biggest problem.
The thing with going into those other dimensions, the Ascendant Realm, and going through the Vex networks and stuff like that, they still have a circular, highly, highly energetic portal.
They're also controlled by the sword logic or by a gate system. Meanwhile, I see what technology is holding that thing together.
If we're going to constitute,
if we're going to constitute it as a black hole, and we're also going to, as an aside, also constitute it as a portal or door, it can't be one or the other. Unless the concept or an idea that Savathun passing through this thing is actually a black hole and it does hold weight, that is the only means that it could hold true. Secondarily, we do not only go to like Palace's place, forget what the map is for the trials.
Mm-hmm.
We've had 2 maps that do exist at least
Emperor's
that are
Respite.
within. Yes, the other one though for the trials map, that one exists within this field and this plane and the gravity well or
Right.
black hole, whatever it is. So it isn't just when we win. That's where I'm really having this hard time thinking that this thing even exists and that it isn't. I will go back to the Matrix on this concept and idea every single day of the week. It's
By the way,
idea. Yeah, sorry.
This is just for those of you at home. This is actually what Beard and I were fighting about last night, and I actually went to bed really angry at him and woke up really angry at him for this whole concept because I still believe it's possible, even though he really doesn't, and we're going to probably consistently be at each other with this.
This one is never going to end well.
Nope.
I have a feeling. No. I will go back to the Matrix though every time with this kind of thought because it's just what Morpheus says to Neo basically. Free your mind. And it isn't until Neo basically opens up his mind enough that he can actually like start to perceive and understand that his body can his mind can basically do more than his body can. Because we're not told that all of a sudden it's only our minds that are locked within these trial spaces. This is the kind of stuff that I'm looking at it on at least some basic concept to say that yes, we are going to a place, but I think we're hovering there and basically like totally pulling. Good grief! Now I'm losing my train of thought because I'm like getting too flustered about this one. It's the simple idea that we are basically not told that we are stuck in a place. And because of that, we perceive that the body that we have is just that. It's our typical body that we're used to having. Meanwhile, we're knocked out, still floating in space somewhere for the little while that it takes for us to do the trial or whatever. And all they're doing is judging us based on our actions from previously, but they're able to allow us to have a temporary body, quote unquote, that allows us to do this stuff. I really, really, really have a hard time believing that the black hole itself is real. I think that the 9 are real. I just don't think that the trials are in any way held in the way that they are. Because again, a black hole that close in our system, big problem. The closest system that could possibly be is 3,000 light years out. And even then the next closest black hole is 30,000 light years out. We only have NLS travel. Near light speed does not take you that fast. There is nothing that purports that we go faster than near light speed. That is the biggest issue right now where I can say it's either terrible science, it doesn't take the ideas of distance into effect, or doesn't think that we can go ahead and, or thinks that something happened within our solar system that the traveler affected that much that black holes have no effect on the solar system. Like,
Take a breath.
Yeah, I know. I'm just rambling on, but like I have 20 ways to Sunday, in which case that I'm like, no.
So basically, Beer just explained the entire concept of Voltron and the Black Lion testing Shiro. For any of you at home that are doing what I'm doing and just taking spark notes of this conversation, he also just got done explaining astral projection inside of a psychomutable netherverse. But for those of you who want to talk about cartoons, this was Voltron 101.
Also, just FYI, I agree with Beard that that's not a real black hole. I think it just looks like a black hole.
Well,
so it's like a keyhole?
Yeah.
Like a door?
No, I mean like a keyhole, like Osiris was looking. Never mind.
Wait.
No.
So it's like A113?
Yep. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, we should wrap up right there. Cut the tape.
I think that's fine.
This was a TED Talk on Destiny 2.
Oh my god!
Join us next week on
episode we've had in a while.
Yeah.
So, final shout-outs, guys. What do you got? I don't know which one of you I should let go first. Do you promise not to argue with each other?
Beard, you may go first.
All right. Continuing on with my shout out from earlier. Yes, the great Stephen Hawking has passed this week. Incredible loss to mankind. However, one that happened 52 years after his original prognosis and so on. He is a fantastic example of how you can wake up in the morning, look at yourself, understand that you've got a full working body, go out and do something and not let it get you down. And I know that is, I'll say firsthand, not always going to be easy to do. But I cannot imagine that every day was easy for that man to approach. So if you ever need somebody else to kind of look back on over history or otherwise, he is not just for the works that he did for mankind, not just for the thoughts that he had to inspire generations worth of scientists at this point, but just to sit back and look at what he's done, considering his condition, considering he was in a wheelchair for how long. You knew I was going to bring him up at some point. Like, you knew it. But he is somebody that it hit me very, very hard this week that he had passed. And again, I don't think it was so much that he had passed because he had such an amazing life for what he had done for humanity, but like what more he could have offered is more what kind of gets to me. It's the same realm as things like Carl Sagan or Einstein, of Newton or others. Like most of those that I can think of were taken from us at rather younger ages. And Mr. Hawking was 76.
What was amazing, just to kind of tie in with yours and his, Hawking is actually one of the most easily read physics books. He's an excellent writer, because if you are not, I like science. I love science. I love astrophysics. I love physics in general. I am not good with the math. You hand me a bunch of equations and I can figure them out, but I'm going to get really bored with reading the book. The way that Stephen Hawking wrote all of his books, A Brief History of Time, The Universe in a Nutshell, there's so many, and they're not super long. They're well written, and they're thought experiments, much in the same way that Einstein did his books as thought experiments, so that anybody with just any kind of sense of logic can understand. He was one of the best at doing that.
I'm going to say between him and Sagan, both of them were the best, at least in my opinion, with Neil deGrasse Tyson pretty well right there too, as like some and Bill Nye. I know some don't necessarily
Brian
like
Greene.
bringing up his Brian Greene's another good one. But these guys are incredible relators and projectors of the scientific community, to at least get people interested and thinking. And that is more than I can say for a lot of industries that are out there today. So good on them. And Mr. Hawking, you will very much be missed. Honestly, I think I don't have another shout out that's gonna follow that one. Like, Hawking was, like I said, I think between that and of the past several years here, Leonard Nimoy, both of those deaths hit me very hard for different reasons. Even right now, I'm having a hard time not choking. But that was they were both just Hawking going the way that he did was a good time for him. He got everything, at least that I had heard, done that he wanted to do. So it was good on him. He will be very missed.
Yeah, and to kind of follow up on that too, the other thing to remember with that is that his original prognosis was 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was back in 76? No, right?
I don't know what year.
He let's just say this: he beat it.
Yeah, he made that. He made that look like.
Yeah, he made that doctor look like an idiot. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I would use a few choice words, but
yeah,
he punched the absolute hell out of that target. He, just so impressive what he did considering his condition. Just so impressive, and he never let it like seemingly get to him. Overall, he was still one of my favorite interviews with him was with John Oliver.
Oh yeah,
and
he was funny too.
Oh my gosh, he was so good at like turning phrases.
Yes, and one of like the I think bigger key phrases that are like actually pulled from that interview. John Oliver asks Stephen Hawking, "So are you telling me that there's an alternate universe that exists where I'm smarter than you?" And Hawking, like, deadpan, of course, in the way that he has to through the computerized voice, which I think makes the delivery even funnier, goes, "Yes, there's also one where you're actually funny." I just, it was perfect.
All the zingers.
All the singers. And I think that interview, even if it is something where it's like he summoned up all the energy that he had, that was enough for me to kind of say, well, I thought I knew the man through his writings, but to hear him like speaking there in the live and then to see him like smile and grin at John Oliver and for both of them to laugh at the comment was just wonderful. You know, that should say everything about the determination of the man and should say everything about like how he effectively holds himself. Like I don't have any other words for like how impressed I am by his life.
Man, I am not going to be able to follow that shout out. Mine's to my hairdresser.
Hey man, good hair makes you feel good. So how about you go treat yourself?
I got my hair cut today, and she was giving me grief about being on a podcast, and I told her I would totally shout her out in my podcast. So, Sook, thank you. Awkward times. Okay, Blue, your turn.
Well, just real quick, we do have next week's topic is going to be a lore debate on the faction wars. So we talked about that at the top of the episode. Big shout out to OGZ for the sub earlier today or earlier this show. Thank you so much again for that. We really appreciate all the support that you guys give us over on Twitch and on Podbean. Actually, if you want to check that out again, either visit the Twitch page or visit our website. There's a support tab specifically for that. We do also have a schedule change. I know I probably should have mentioned this at the top of the episode, but I completely forgot about it. I did make a big post over on the website for those who want more details on that. Nothing big really is going on. We're just shifting the extra lore and the first week schedule for each month, just to kind of allow for a little bit more flexibility for those of us who are doing the podcast. In
trying
light
to have
of
a little bit more of a life, okay?
Yeah, it's more of in light of life being more demanding, we have to. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, again, just huge shout out to all of you guys for giving us support, whether that is just through the comments that you guys give us. We really appreciate the feedback of all of you, whether it's positive, negative, actually constructive criticism is the best thing that we can get because that's what helps us grow. So keep it coming. But yeah, so definitely with all that, we're going to run through an outro and then I might stay on for a little bit, but I got to get up early tomorrow and drive 8 hours. So we'll see. So let's go through the outro. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Links to all our other sites can also be found with our episode archives over on the new FocusFireChat.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any questions or comments for our team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. Also, be sure to check out all of our amazing podcast partners within the Guardian Radio Network over on theguardiansofdestiny.com. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.